Hello, my most amazing artists. I hope you guys are doing well. I am here today to give you a little video to talk about some of the activities in our Learning in Place packet. The activity I want to talk to you about today, my friends, is project number 2. It's draw a picture of a spring garden. So for this project, it's going to be a really simple one. You'll just need a piece of paper and a pencil, maybe an eraser. I'm gonna grab my eraser. I've got this cool eraser it's like a pencil. And you can use some crayons or some markers. Maybe I'll do a little bit of both. But for our spring garden, so I'm sure you all know what a garden is. Maybe some of you even have gardens at home. So a garden can be a place where you grow flowers. It can be a place where you grow vegetables. It can be a place where you grow herbs. You can grow all kinds of things in a garden. I have a little garden in my backyard and I grow herbs in it. So we are going to draw our spring garden. Now in the springtime, everything starts to grow. The flowers bloom, which means their flower petals open up. The vegetables start to grow and all the insects come. The bees come and pollinate the flowers. The butterflies float around. So in our garden, we're going to include lots of different types of flowers, maybe even some trees in our background. We can also do birds, bugs, and butterflies. And the most important thing here is to fill our whole page with color. So, first and foremost, my garden at home, I used cinder blocks to make the little, I can't think of the word, the perimeter, the outside of my garden. I used cinder blocks. A cinder block is like a big concrete block. So I'm going to draw the ground first of all, because I'm going to draw my garden from the side. So here's the ground, what's called the horizon line. The horizon is where the sky meets the ground. So here's the ground. And then I'm going to draw my cinder blocks. Now cinder blocks are long rectangles. So I'm going to carefully draw some rectangles. And my garden is 4 cinder blocks long on each side, which makes it square shaped. So here are my cinder blocks. And now my garden is in the middle of my yard and there's lots of grass. So I'm going to just do some light little marks to make the grass. I'm going to make the grass come up here so it doesn't look like my garden is floating in the air here. Make some grass, because grass has just these little lines, right? So there's the beginning of my garden. Now in my garden, I'm growing herbs. So I have a lot of plants in there. One is called oregano. Oregano is a plant that you dry out the leaves and then you can put them in spaghetti and it tastes really good. So oregano has little tiny leaves, kind of like that, but it kind of grows to look like a bush. So it's kind of puffy, it grows up and around, and I'm just going to make some little details of leaves here. And I hope that you are drawing your garden along with me, whatever your garden looks like. So my oregano is right there in the middle of my garden. On this side, I have another herb that I really like to put in spaghetti and in other things, maybe like some chicken, is called basil. So basil has a long stem and then it has big leaves like this. So I'm drawing my basil and I'll draw another one. And my leaves kind of alternate going from side to side. I'll draw another one. This one's going to be really tall because I do have some that have gotten pretty tall. All right, so there's my basil. Now on this side, I've planted some flowers. They haven't bloomed yet in real life, but I'm going to imagine that my sunflowers have finally bloomed. And sunflowers get really tall, right? And they have lots and lots of petals. So I'm drawing lots of petals and then the center. And sunflowers have big leaves too. I'm going to draw another one. This one's maybe a little sunflower. Here's another one. This one's even taller. They're called mammoth sunflowers. Mammoth, I don't know if you know what a mammoth is, but a mammoth is like a big elephant type creature that was furry that lived back in the time of the dinosaurs. So mammoth is another word whenever you're describing something as very big. You can say, wow, that is a mammoth of a sunflower. Or that house is big. It's a mammoth of a house. So I have my mammoth sunflowers. Now I'm going to imagine that maybe one of my mammoth sunflowers grew here, right in the middle of my oregano. Maybe a bird picked up the seeds and dropped one right here. And maybe one even went over here. And I'm just letting my imagination run wild while I draw my garden. So I've got lots of these flowers. I've got my basil, I've got my oregano. Now, here's my sky. That's my background. It looks pretty empty, right? So in my backyard, I have a lot of pine trees. So pine trees are big and tall, and they go like this. And then they have kind of bark texture. So I'm just going to draw some loose textures of bark, because you know how the pine tree bark is kind of has these long strips of bark. So there's one, and I'll draw another one. It's almost like it's going off the page here. So I'll draw the bark on it, maybe even make the bark show up here on the side, make these overlap. And then I have a fence in my backyard. So my fence is tall, maybe it's about up here. And my fence has sort of this bumpy top. Do you have a fence in your yard? Is it a wood fence? Is it a metal chain link fence? Do you not have a fence at all? We didn't have a fence for a while. We just got ours last year. And each part of my fence is made up of these long boards. So I'm going to make sure I draw my boards of my fence. And make sure that my fence boards go behind what I'm drawing, because these flowers are in front of the fence. So I'm not going to draw the lines through what I'm drawing, because you can't see the fence behind the flower, right? So there's my backyard. Now it said to include some butterflies and bugs. I think I'll do a butterfly right here. Now a butterfly, you know, a caterpillar turns into a butterfly, right? So a butterfly's body is still like a caterpillar. It's long and skinny. Then it has 2 antennae, and it has 2 big wings. And I'm going to draw a bumblebee over here. And a bumblebee has like a little round body, a little head. I'll make it have a little stinger. I'll give him his little legs and then his wings. And he has some little stripes. And I'll even draw this little line to show that he flies along in a loop-de-loop. So, it also said to draw a bird. I've had lots of robins in my yard. So I'm going to draw a robin. They have a little round head, a little beak. Maybe his beak is open because he's singing a song. And then they have a little body. Their body's kind of shaped like this. They've got a little round belly, little wing, and a tail, and then little feet while it stands in the grass. And there's a little bird. So now that I've drawn my garden, I'm going to start to color it. I'm going to take the sky. The sky has been a really pretty light blue. It's really pretty out right now, actually. So I can see just a little bit of the sky here. And this is actually called robin's egg blue. It's one of my favorite crayon colors. And I'm going to color it in very carefully. And I might turn my page holding my hand down on it so that I can move my crayon across the space better. And then when I'm coloring for the top of the fence, maybe I take my crayon and trace around the top of the fence before I start trying to color in those little crevices between, because it'll make it easier to stay in the lines, right? So I'm gonna fill in each spot. This is gonna be really pretty. I can't wait to finish it, but I'm not gonna rush. All right, so there's my sky. Very nice. Now, I'm going to take a brown color and color my trees. This one's called chestnut, which is actually a type of tree. So I'm going to use this brown. Oh, that's perfect. It is really close to the way a pine tree looks. So it's very similar color. So coloring in my pine tree. And this one's kind of easy because it's just straight up and down, right? But you notice I turn my crayon so that I can use the sharp side to go along the edge here. And I have my messy mat underneath. That way if I do go off the page, it's okay. No big deal. And I can take my crayon and press down a little bit harder and draw my bark back in like this. That gives it a little bit of texture, if you remember us talking about texture. So now again, I'm outlining and then I'm coloring. I'm not scribbling. I'm coloring carefully, holding my page down with my other hand. All right, and again, I'm going to press down a little harder to draw my bark. There are my trees. Now, my fence is a slightly different color of brown, like a lighter color, and I have this tan, which should work just right. But I'm going to take my tan first and press down hard to draw my lines of the boards. But remember, I'm not going to go over the things that are in front of it. I'm going to go behind it, because just like in real life, these things are behind the fence, or in front of the fence rather. So I'm just going to make sure I skip around anything that is in front of it, blocking my view. Skipping, skipping, skipping. All right, so now I'm going to take my crayon and lightly color in my fence. This way, my lines still show up. Remember, I'm not coloring over the things that are in front. And this will make it easier to color those things too, because I won't have to try to color over the tan color. And this one I have to be a little careful because the leaves are small. So I just want to make sure I carefully color in between. And I'm working from back to front in my picture, meaning I'm coloring the things that are the farthest away first. So that was the sky. And then now I'm doing the middle ground, which is the tree and the fence. And then I'll do the foreground next. The foreground means the things that are the closest to me. And hopefully you all are working on your garden or watching me work on mine and starting to get inspired about what kind of garden you want to do. And you don't have to do a real garden. You could make a garden up in your imagination. I would love to see your best, most amazing gardens that you come up with in your mind. You could even invent your own kinds of flowers if you want. They don't have to be real. Just remember that usually a flower has a center and then the petals coming out from the center in a radial design. A radial design means a circle. So they would have that. They'll have a stem connecting them to the ground, and they'll have leaves. And the leaves might be shaped like this, or the leaves might be long and skinny. There's a lot of different types of flowers and leaves you can do. All right, there is my background. Now, my cinder blocks are gray. So I'm trying to find a gray crayon here. Here we go. This is called Timberwolf, but that is another word for gray. And I'm going to color in my cinder blocks gray. Maybe using the darker outline, pressing down just to make them show up better. There's my gray cinder blocks. And I have my grass growing here at the bottom. But first, I think I'm going to do my oregano. So my oregano, I'm going to go over my outlines first, a little bit darker. And this is just a little trick that'll make your drawings look really good whenever you go over the outline by pushing down a little bit harder. And then coloring it in a little more lightly. See, doesn't that look pretty nice? I'm going to set this green aside because my basil is more of a light green. So I'm going to use this yellow green and color in my basil. And then I'm going to find a different green. I have lots of different types of green. This one's called Fern, to do my sunflower stems and leaves. And I can do my middle part of my leaf a little bit darker. Make sure I connect my leaves to my stems, right? Don't want those leaves just floating. Coloring lightly. Make sure I don't forget this one. So what kind of flowers do you have maybe growing in your garden? I kind of have a hard time growing flowers. I don't know why. If you have an easy time growing flowers, tell me all about it. I want to know your secrets. So the middle of sunflowers are usually black or dark brown. I'm going to use this dark brown, color the middle of my sunflowers. That's where the seeds are. Have you ever eaten sunflower seeds before? I have. They're pretty good, right? And now I'm going to find a yellow. Now, sunflowers have a really pretty sort of golden yellow. This is called goldenrod. This might be, aha, perfect. So I'm coloring my sunflowers, but you can use any color that makes you happy for your flowers. Again, you don't have to make yours like a real flower. It doesn't have to be. You could make blue. You could make them red. You could do any color that you like, because like I have some fake flowers and they're sort of a bluish purple color, but I've never seen that color in real life, but they're still very pretty. So You can use any type of flower that you like, any color. Uh-oh, I forgot to do the center. There we go. Now, got my sunflowers. Now I have to do my butterflies. Let's see. I'm going to make one of my butterflies pink. I really like pink, so I'm going to use pink flamingo for this one. Coloring in this butterfly. All right, so there's a pink butterfly. I'm going to do a, let's see. I'm going to do an orange, sunset orange. Let's do this one. That looks pretty good. I'm going to do the antenna. And then my bee, they're yellow and black, right? So I'll take my yellow. And then let's see if I can find black. Well, I found this color called shadow. I don't know if that's dark enough. It's hard to tell. Well, I am going to use the shadow for the body of my robin down here because the robins are usually sort of a gray color with a red chest, right? So I'll use my red. They have a yellow beak. All right. And then, last but not least, I have to color my grass. So let's see, what color am I going to use for my grass? Green, but I want to find a green that I really like. Here's one called Shamrock. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the top of my grass. So grass has, you know, this texture of the little blades of grass, as they're called. So I want to make sure I don't just color a flat line across the top because that probably wouldn't look as realistic. Now take and make some of my little grass blades, and then I'm going to take my green and just color lightly. Gotta make sure I go here. I'm going to go carefully around my robin. Coloring in, filling in the space. Making sure I go all the way to the edge. And there we have it. There is my beautiful, I think, garden scene. I can't wait to see yours. Now in my garden scene, I filled the whole page with color. I have the foreground, which is the things that are closest to me. I have the middle ground, which are the things that are a little bit farther away. So my garden, my trees, my fence, and then I have my background, which is the sky. So I want to see your beautiful spring gardens, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye guys, stay creative.